Hello, my Astro family. This is Lada from astrolada.com, here to announce to you a pivotal astrological event, the rise of Saturn, the birth of Saturn, which is going to affect the world in a very obvious way and your life personally. And we'll speak about those two influences in each of the 12 signs, how you'll be affected. This is a rare astrological event. It happens once a year at very different times of the year, depending on the astrological, depending where Saturn is. But this is a time of birth of new structures and new order. What does it mean, the birth of Saturn? This is an ancient term, the heliacal rising of Saturn. For the past 2 months, Saturn, the planets of order and discipline and limitations, was invisible, meaning it was too close to the sun. And the sun's light, of course, we cannot see any stars or planets that are close to the sun because the sun is too bright. So for the last 2 months, part of December, January, the whole January, part of February, already till the middle of February, Saturn was invisible. And in ancient times, they said that Saturn goes in the underworld then, and it consults with the king and gets programmed for a new energetic pattern that is going to unfold, Saturnian energetic pattern, which means structures, new orders, whatever, that are going to be born once Saturn becomes visible. So at night, or I think it's, I don't know, is it at night or in the morning? Yeah, at night, you're going to start seeing around the world with the visible eye, with an arm eye, without binoculars and everything, or anything. Gradually, you're going to start seeing Saturn, the star, like a star on the western horizon after sunset. And this is the birth of new Saturnian energy. So the whole world will feel it, and every person on a different level, depending where Saturn is in their horoscope. We'll speak about that. But let's look a little bit back. What was, when Saturn was not visible, what happens? Oh, it has its good things because certain responsibilities and duties and burdens can disappear as well. Certain bad people or oppressive circumstances can also loosen up. But also order, structure disappears. The ability to contain, Saturn is like casing. Saturn is like a wall to contain, to give form to something. And you see what happened in the last 2 months. When there is no Saturn present there, it was so hard to contain the wildfires in Australia. So they just were rampant. There is no containment, Also, when Saturn was invisible, there was no containment of this coronavirus. It just goes rampant. It spreads very quickly because Saturn is to contain, to put structure, to put a border. So you see, but now Saturn starts appearing, which on some levels can be a fantastic thing. And gradually, it takes 2 weeks. And this week, from the 10th till the 16th of February, it's becoming visible to the most inhabited parts of the world, like Northern America, like Europe, gradually. But it takes 2 weeks, to feel the full impact of Saturn becoming visible, being born, introducing this new order, structures, new organization of any sort. And that will be good news on the world level because it will be easier now to contain contagion, talking about the coronavirus, for example. It can be easier to control the population as well, another thing. When Saturn is invisible, the governments, which are signified by Saturn is structure, rule, order. It's hard for them to contain their the people, and the people tend to rise usually more. You've probably seen protests around the world in the last 2 months. But now the government will strengthen its grip again when Saturn appears, especially since Saturn is becoming visible in its sign of Capricorn, its own sign of structure of governments, of control. So expect strengthening and new rules and regulations coming from governments. They might be with excuses that we have to contain an outbreak, or we have to put a stronger limitations on something to create, but maybe they're good, maybe they're with evil plans. I'm not saying anything. I think humans are not matured enough not to have any rules and limitations. We need to be way more spiritually matured and self-sufficient. It will probably take another few hundred years, I guess, until we're ready not to have any rules and regulations and structures. But you'll notice now around the world this month, this week, or it's already started in some places, that there are more orders from the government, more issuing new laws that are about regulating, that are about putting restrictions, that are about controlling something in some way. They might be whether for traveling or whether for anything. They might be for anything. And there will be strengthening of Saturnian political forces, Saturnian and Capricorn, which are more conservative. So strengthening of conservative values over all the world, and strengthening of conservative political groups. And I'm not for anyone or saying good or bad. I'm just saying astrologically what it means. And also, you've been noticing, if you live in the areas of the world where it's winter, when Saturn becomes visible and is being born, the Saturnian qualities around the world spread. So what is Saturn? It's cold. It's cold, it's ice, it's, it's bitter. So you've noticed that probably the winter and in the last few weeks it's been colder, and it's around the time Saturn starts becoming visible. So you'll notice that, and even here where we're supposed to have mild winters in Washington state, my God, it's been freezing for the past 10 days or something when Saturn is starting to become visible. As I said, it's not one day that Saturn suddenly is visible. It takes like 2 weeks. You start to suddenly see Saturn like a glimmer, and then it disappears. And then on the next day at sunset, you see it a little bit more, and it takes like 2 weeks till you can see it properly. But yes, it will definitely increases the qualities of coldness, of freezing, and you can see it not only in nature but in your own bodies. Around this time, people are more susceptible to colds, to conditions that are freezing, and like arthritis or the hurting of the bones. You'll notice more, or anything that is stiffening of joints, stiffening, freezing, coldness. So if you're having those symptoms, you're just responding to the cosmic weather. You're very tuned to it. Of course, you can try and counterbalance a bit the Saturn influence, which will be so strong now. These couple of weeks, it is so strong, by taking in more sun. If there is no more sun, the opposite of Saturn is the enemy of Saturn that basically makes it a bit weaker, is the sun. So eating fruits that look like the sun, like oranges, like citrusy fruits that basically they compact the sun, inside, orangey yellow fruits that are juicy. This can help you with the stiffening and colder conditions and more lethargic conditions that are Saturnian in nature when Saturn is being born, or they cold extremities and stuff. Overall, kind of, and you can just feel more serious overall, the birth of more seriousness, the birth of more structure, of discipline. And it can have a great influence as well for some people, especially people that are into the career world, that like structure, that like organization, that need their routines to function properly and to be successful. When Saturn becomes invisible, like it was for the last 2 months, it's hard to have control over those things. It's kind of, people feel more disorganized, and that's because it's time to kind of regroup, and when Saturn becomes visible, to bring new rules and disciplines and order into your life. So you'll notice that you have a lot more self-discipline gradually over the next 2 weeks, that you have a lot more self-control, that you have a lot more willpower to, which is Saturn is kind of the power to say no, all those negative things, but the power to deny yourself something. And when it is invisible, it's harder to do so. But when it is visible or starts becoming visible, you can say, no, I'm going to skip on that cake, or no, I'm going to skip on that extra drink, or, or I'm going to wake up at 6 o'clock and go running in the blistering rain and wind, So it's this get up and not get up and go. It's not so inspirational. It's more like Saturn pushes us into action when it's being born, more through the realization of aging, of the realization of trying to preserve something, and realization of fear that if you don't do it, things will fall apart. But Saturn pushes us because of more difficult reasons for us to organize, to plan, to self-discipline, to create structures. And by the way, when Saturn starts becoming visible, fantastic time to start some business that is Saturnian, or to create a new structure for your business, so to lay the foundations of a business of some sort, if you want it to be long lasting, because Saturn is becoming visible in Capricorn, in the constellation of the second winner, the undefeatable. Basically, it's called a constellation called the undefeated. So building foundations for businesses, for structures, this can go very well. This is good. Or maybe even opening businesses connected to older elderly people, connected to skin, Saturn rules, connected to any kind of systems of any sort, Saturn rules those such things, to property, connected to building of any sorts as well, to corporations, to structure organizations, all of those things are supported when Saturn becomes visible. An especially positive influence of Saturn becoming visible will be for Aquarius and Capricorn people, because Saturn is the ruler of those two signs. You might be Aquarius rising or Capricorn rising, sun or moon. Because while Saturn is invisible, those people tend to suffer a little bit. They become a bit more invisible as well. They don't have enough physical energy, or they're preparing something behind the scenes, so they're taking it easier somehow. Oh, they just can't manifest properly because their planet is invisible. So on the material level, they can't manifest. But when Saturn becomes visible, Capricorns, Aquarians, they'll start coming into their strength. They'll start having more energy. I have been sleeping for 12 hours. It's crazy. I mean, that's not like me. And I'm Aquarius rising, of course. So, and I can't, and I'm starting, Saturn is starting to rise. So more and more I'm starting to have energy little by little. So this is what you're going to feel if you're Aquarius and Capricorn rising. For you, things will start aligning and becoming, you'll be able to initiate things, the birth of your planet, to start new things. You'll become more motivated. Your planet becomes visible. You'll be able to manifest in the material world more easily. But for other people, the rise of Saturn can bring some complications, because Saturn will become visible for everyone who will be born in a different area of their horoscope. So it can bring definitely the good things, like more structure, more organization, more self-discipline in that area of life, but more rules. But also it can bring the more negative things, the birth of new responsibilities. Well, maybe that's not bad, the birth of new responsibilities there, the birth of new challenges and obstacles. That's something, the birth of something that you have to put more focus, efforts, and repeated efforts to get it done. It's not just gonna, something appears in your life when Saturn becomes visible. For everyone, watch it. Those 2 weeks, maybe it already came for some of you, it appeared. Something appears that entails you to put more efforts, that can feel a bit more like burden, that can worry you, how am I gonna cope? That feels like, oh my God, this will be a long project, or this will be a long investment of a lot of effort and energy, or can I really do that, or this will have to be done over and over, or you might be even forced into something, because Saturn has this tendency to force us into some situations that are not necessarily what we want, but that are good for our growth and to make us more mature, to pay certain karmas, and to become more responsible, and to create more stability in our life in the long term. But initially it feels like punishment. So something can appear in your life and you're like, oh crap, really? Like this obstacle, this challenge. So they can be the birth of some obstacle and challenge, but keep this in mind to the back of your head, because the ultimate goal of Saturn is not to punish you. The ultimate goal of Saturn is to make you mature, is to create more stable structures in your life, and to streamline your life, to simplify it in the long run. And to teach you to be responsible and to manifest materially in the world, because there is a lot of teaching that we can manifest just with our mind, but Saturn is also a planet of reality. So Saturn is, yes, if you believe it, it's more possible to happen, but you have to put the hard work, Saturn, Yeah. I mean, if you want to be a famous actor, it doesn't mean suddenly someone will, and you really believe it, you will. You have to put the hard work. You have to learn your lines. You have to go to auditions all the time. Uh, you know, it's there is this nothing just comes out of the imagination. So this is the Saturn energy, having to put the efforts, but it feels like being a slave for a little bit. So some new responsibility is going to get born in your life, or a challenge that will make you grow. And who feel this the most? As I said already, Capricorns, Aquarius, but many people I can feel it very strongly. If you are having, let me share my screen. If you are having a Saturn transit at the same time. So this month, February, if you're also in February, especially from around the 5th of February to around the 25th of February, you're having a Saturn transit personally, when no one else in the world has, only you have it. And how can you check that? Go to astrology.com, log in. If you don't have an account, make one. Here it is, log in. I already have an account. And you can enter your birth details. I've already entered mine, personal transit calendar. Here is mine. And you can have for 7 days always ahead free. You can see your personal transits that no one else in the world has. Only you have them at that time, unless you have a twin who is born 2-3 minutes around you. He'll have the same ones. So I check those and check if this month, so I have the free option, so it shows me just for 7 days. If you have any Saturn transits, the Saturn transits are in brown, just like Saturn is a shitty brown planet. I'm sorry, it's not Saturn, I love you, you're my planet, you rule me. But here it is, it's in brown, and this is the symbol of Saturn. So you see, I have a shitload of Saturn transits. Saturn square Sun, Saturn square Venus. So if you're having any Saturn transits, so the brown transits this week, and if you have an account that is paid, you can, but you just need to look for the next 20 days when Saturn is becoming visible. Let me see. For my husband, does he have any? He also has Saturn transits till the 15th. So here it is, Saturn, here the brown transits. So if you're having any Saturn transits, read what they mean for you personally, and that will be tripled or intensified. Maybe you felt it already a week or two ago, because Saturn, as I said, it takes 2-3 weeks to become visible. But whatever Saturn transit you have, read it, because Saturn is becoming visible and making transit at the same time in your horoscope. So this will be extremely important for you. You'll feel it. And by the way, just till the end of February, I have, you can purchase this transit calculator for life for only $150. That's basically an offer that I'm only opening once. This is called the Legacy Membership. Once you get it, you will have it for lifetime, till this website exists, till there is internet running. You have access to your horoscope, to your personal transits with interpretation, which I have developed for life. Plus, you have 50% off all of my future and past courses if you want to learn astrology. And this offer is only open till the end of February. And it's not going to be open after that, because I just want to give an access to those who are passionate about astrology to have this for life. And for life you have it. Just you pay $150 and that's all. So stopping share. So these are the people who are going to feel it the most, but everyone will feel it in a certain area of their life, starting with Aries, Sun, Moon, Rising. The rising is always the most important, but Saturn is becoming visible, is being born in your 10th house areas, which indicates the birth of new responsibility. There might be the birth of a new career project, which demands more work and effort from you, which demands more focus and concentration. That will be more straining on you, but at the same time that can create long-lasting results for you, to implant a more stable social position in your life, respect. And the 10th house, where Saturn is becoming visible, is also reputation. Also, there might be the birth of a new boss figure for you, like a new boss comes, that's a bit tough. That's like Saturn, older, but very experienced and mature. Or if you're your own boss, you create some new structures for your business. You can start coming with such ideas to structurize, now to 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 lead more effectively, to streamline your working process and your organizational process at your work. Of course, they can be the birth of a new job for some of you. And because Saturn brings it, if it comes, if you're Aries and Moon rising, if Saturn brings it, it will entail more responsibilities. It will entail maybe twice as much work, but more respect in the long term as well. And it might feel like it's more ungrateful because you're like really having the world on your shoulders when it comes to worldly responsibility or career. But in the long term, again, it will create more stability, more respect for you. Also, let's not forget the negative side, because Saturn can also give the birth of some difficulties and obstacles wherever it's being born. So for you Aries, this can be of course, your career, with a parent, with an institution of some sort, or maybe some more laborious process or work that is being born now, or activity that involves some institutions that you have to put more efforts into working with some institution or satisfying the demands of some institution. But there might be some, in the worst case scenario, whatever, and eventually even it turns into positive scenario, that certain more discipline, more structure is being born in your work and career, more responsibilities there, but also some obstacle can appear that you have to work through patiently, that you have to work through with perseverance, and not trying to fix it all in once. So yeah, stay tuned and watch which of those things are happening. And of course, they can be the birth of a new business or career opportunity, which again will take longer than you think, will be longer lasting because it's Saturn, will be probably very victorious again because Saturn is becoming visible in that constellation of the later victory, it's called. So the victory comes a bit later, but it's undefeatable, but it's long-lasting victory. So, okay. What else? So that's for Aries. And by the way, Aries, we're making a course on the 21st with Victor on transits, to understand transits, how to predict with transit is the most basic astrology method for prediction. I use it extensively. Transits are my favorite thing, but they become much more correct since Victor taught me the ancient methods of which transits to consider, because there's so many, as you can see from the transits calendar. You can have up to 20 transits a day, but only a few actually give material results and manifest it. And Victor will teach you how to recognize those, which are triggered and which will manifest. So check it out. It's very cheap. It's a 5-hour webinar. So we try to make it affordable to all of you. Taurus. Sun, Moon, rising. Saturn is becoming visible in your 9th house. It's being born there. So they can be the birth of new rules and regulations, and the birth of a new worldview that is more realistic, that is more practical. First Jupiter became born in your 9th house. Maybe it brought more hope and optimism in your belief system. But now Saturn is becoming born there in your 9th house of ideals, of beliefs, of how you perceive reality, which is one of the most important houses. It's one of the self houses, the 9th, the 1st, the 5th. Whatever this house has triggered, it becomes part of you. And through this, you can have your success or no in the world, because this is your perception of the world. So with Saturn being born there now for you, you'll notice that you're integrating some more serious, down-to-earth, philosophical approach to life, maybe a little bit more negative. On the negative side, it can mean that you're becoming more negative. For a couple of weeks, you might feel just more disgruntled with the world, that the universe is a bitch, or it's bitter, or it's that you can incorporate for a little bit like more conservative belief system, the birth of or return to a more conservative belief system with Saturn becoming visible in your 9th house, like going back to more traditional thou shalt not or else. Maybe this is exactly what's necessary for you to be more practical, to rein in more restraint, or the belief that it's not only positive thinking that brings you something, but you have to put the hard work as well, and Saturn can activate you into the hard work. But on a more material level, it can indicate, again, as I said, on psychological, for some of you, it can feel more negative. You can feel like more gloomy outlook to the world. But it's actually the birth of a more pragmatic. In the long run, you'll realize that it started a bit like gloomy, but it settled you in a more balanced, pragmatic approach to life, to world, to religion, to what you believe is possible, to your visions of the future. This is the ninth house. Um, and but on a material level, what can you give birth to when Saturn becomes visible? There can be the birth of a new educational course or program for some of you, for pre-qualification. That might require more efforts, that can feel a bit laborious. You might even be forced into some kind of pre-qualifying or educational experience because of work, because Saturn rules work, career, being born in your ninth house of studies, high education, crash courses of any sort, something educational, that you might take on, that you have to, because Saturn often works through you have to, not like, oh, I want to. But if you also want it, that's great, because you'll pass through it easier. And it might entail the energy of kind of very structured learnings, the energy of kind of maybe a lot of exams, or that it's taken of your time and kind of more demanding, or that you can join some educational institutions that are very traditional, that are like an institution, that are very established, respectable. 200 years we've existed as a university or whatever. If you want to apply to such universities and places, now is the time, with Saturn becoming visible there for you. But it will entail a lot of responsibilities as well. Also, if you're a teacher or someone who has to counselor, advisor that inspires others, ninth house rules that, to give knowledge and wisdom to others as well, to make lectures and seminars. It can be the birth of a new such project for you that might be long lasting, that might require you to put extra effort, that might stretch longer than you expect, that might feel like, oh, that's a lot of, things I have to do, but go for it, because it's Saturn's becoming visible in the constellation of the second, the later winner, according to ancient Vedic astrology. So in the long term, this will have very positive, victorious results for you. Also, it might be the birth of some trip that you have to do, especially connected to study or work or some responsibility, some long trip to faraway country or to a country. Also, it can be the birth of new teaching projects that are more traditional, that are more structured, or the birth of new teacher, the appearance of a new teacher. For some of you, it can be new inspirational figure that comes, that is older, for example, Saturn, that is old school, that comes from an old religion, like some guru from an ancient religion that you get all excited about. Or it might be that such a mentor appears in your life, you're not wanting them so much even, that kind of a critical teacher. Saturn is like, so what are you doing here? So you think you're going to succeed in life if you carry on like that? We have to change something. So it can be those tones. If someone like a mentor or like an advisor comes to you, and it's not necessarily in a professional sense that it's a mentor, an advisor who works this like a coach or life guru. It might be as a personality, as a messenger from God. Ninth house is how God communicates to us. So now it can, and that's why the teachers, it might be, usually Saturn indicates someone older, but some other teacher can appear in your life as a guise of a friend or whatever, or just like some acquaintance who comes and criticizes something about you, or who kind of challenges you and pushes you to feel like, I'm not doing good enough, I have to try harder. But this person wants to, just like Saturn, to perfect, to remove the necessary, to make you aware of the burden that you're carrying, which is not needed, and how you're doing something not smart but hard, for you to realize, wow, that's not smart. But someone can do it in a critical way, as a teacher advice coming to you. It's kind of like a bit like you go for an advice, or you don't even, you want it, but someone pushes it on you or slaps you in the face and tells you, this is not right what you're doing, you know. Okay, so, but again, keep in mind that this is God, the universe, trying to talk to you now and to give you some direction, albeit not in the gentlest, nicest way, possibly. The best manifestation might be older, more experienced teacher that appears, or advisor or mentor that helps in that direction, or your own higher self kind of takes on a more serious approach. And the ninth house is also businesses that are connected to import, export, teaching, as I said, legal matters. So that can be the birth of some process that maybe is a bit longer, requires extra effort and some structures around such businesses. And by the way, Taurus, on the 21st of February, Victor is making a webinar on transits. And transits are so misunderstood because a person can have up to 30 transits, as you saw from my transit calendar, per day. But which ones are the really important? He explains to you this. For 5-hour webinar, transits are the building blocks of predictive astrology. I mostly work with transits, and my readings have been most correct when I use transits, but how to use them correctly. Beautiful webinar. I'm excited about it. It's very cheap and it's 30% off if you get it now. Okay, Gemini. Saturn is being born for the last time. It was already twice in the last 2 years. In your 8th house. The birth of Saturn in your 8th house can create more structure in your organization and more self-restraint in your financial situation. Especially finances that are somehow connected to other people, to your marriage partner, to your business partner, to your clients, to banks, to investments. You might have to start some restructuring process now, because Saturn is structure, to initiate some restructuring process over these couple of weeks, or maybe it already started, in regards to your finances, mutual finances, resources, to make it more realistic, to make it more to comply to laws and rules and regulations in some way, to cut some losses as well, to cut and some expenses, because Saturn just wants to make things efficient, to minimize, you know, and especially if you have like spendings on other resources with partners or whatever, there can be the need to limit yourself now, or a partner might, the birth of a situation where a partner or business or personal partner has to limit themselves financially or have more control of themselves and their spendings and your mutual spendings together financially, or you're just restructuring some of your investments, putting more order, organization there. Another thing is taxes is the 8th house, the start of some activity that requires concentrated effort, which is Saturn, a lot of attention to detail, maybe a lot of repeated effort or kind of laborious work connected to taxes, to restructuring taxes, or insurances and inheritances. So you can start a process for insurance, inheritance, or taxes that is kind of more demanding, or some business revision type kind of monetary thing, you know. As well, or some bank revision or inventories. These are the 8th kind of house, especially if it's a business that is, you know, you work with others. Okay, or other people's resources you're using. They can also be the birth of some limitations in regards to your resources, mutual resources. That's in the more difficult case scenario. In the best case scenario is that you're trying to streamline, to make more effective, more efficient your resources and finances. What else is happening? They can be also, the 8th house is how we use our power, and that can be sexual power or psychic power or power of influence, psychological influence over others. And when Saturn becomes visible there, you might start trying to control more power over those abilities that you have, more power, more control over your sexual power. Maybe you can start the birth of interest towards some kind of a discipline in your sexual, you know, practices, maybe to not to come, to stimulate yourself, generate energy, but not come, or maybe to stop a porn addiction, to have more self-control and something like that, or maybe to stop some sexual, to have the no power. Saturn has no power to stop yourself from, and Saturn has been in your 8th house for a couple of years. So you're starting to master that. Well, to deny yourself some of those things. But you finally going to have a bit more control over that, and you won't feel like you're out of control with those impulses, those urges. The eighth house is impulses, urges of the desire soul, of the desire was the astral body, so to speak. And maybe you can start some occult practices that require self-discipline. That's for more evolved people that are interested in that. Occult practices of regulating the energy, the chakras of funny enough, Saturn is the planet of achieving spiritual, getting to the spiritual. Saturn is the planet of spiritual discipleship. So when it's in a spiritual house like the eighth house, the energy body, the astral body, the desire body, you can have more control. You can be the birth of more control over those things. And if you're not doing it willingly, it gets imposed to you from outside. So you might be the birth of some restrictions in your sexual activity because you might want it, but something happens that you have restriction to the use of your sexual power, restriction to the use of other people's resources, or just restriction. And that, if you don't impose it on yourself, psychological, how you use your psychological power over others, for example, now it can be imposed on you from outside. It can be the birth of a deep research as well at some scientific matter. Saturn is very scientific. Eighth house is research. That will take for a long time some deep research or investigation. That can be the birth and the start of some occult studies that you become very serious about, that you dig very serious. It might take longer. It might make you feel a bit dark and moody at start, to discover those scary secrets sometimes of the universe. But it's fantastic time for some deep spiritual studies when Saturn starts becoming visible in the eighth house. Of course, there can be the birth of certain fears, but Jupiter is also there, so it's keeping, I think it will keep the balance quite well. The birth of certain fears, possible psychological and type of thing. And also, it can be a time to start building walls if you've let someone too close in. And when Saturn was invisible in your eighth house, especially since you've kind of learned in the past 2 years, actually, when Saturn was already there, to put kind of walls to someone penetrating the deeper areas of yourself, to be more, let's say, calculating or more careful with such things. Of deep merging with another. But while Saturn was invisible, maybe you let your guard down, and now Saturn becoming visible in your eighth house of psychological merging with another can make you again create some distance on the emotional, psychological level with a partner, business or personal partner, on another person. Okay. Then, and by the way, me and Victor in particular is making a course on transits on the 21st of February. And this transits, it's about 5-hour course, it's 30% off. How to use transits to predict. I personally use mostly transits, and my best predictions are using transits, and it's the easiest method for prediction in astrology. So check it out. It's a great course. All right. And then if you're Cancer, Saturn is becoming visible, is being born in your seventh house of relationships. This means that there can be the birth of a new relationship for some of you. There's a birth of a planet. Yes, it's not the most happy, clappy planet, but it can be a new person coming into your life who is Saturnian in nature. It means someone who is older, more responsible, more mature, and Saturn is quite good in its own sign. Might not be the most fun person, but it will be someone who is loyal, who is responsible. And by the way, people that you meet now, specifically for you, Cancer, Sun, Moon, or Rising, whether it's new business partners, whether it's new close people, or whether it's new relationship opportunities or collaboration opportunities, these people can stay with you in the long term, because Saturn is being born in a nakshatra of a victorious constellation, so they can bring long-term victory in your life, long-lasting results. It might not be easy to start, when Saturn becomes visible and someone appears, Saturn is a more cautious planet. So someone new that can come into your life can be more cautious, might have Saturnian qualities, as I said, older, or someone who is a CEO or a person in a corporate environment, or someone who works with Saturnian matters like structure, organization, leadership of some sort, control, damage control, supervision of any sort. And there are other Saturn careers, regulations and whatever, working with the elderly, but such person can appear in your life. And it can be a very respectable person who is reliable, who is there for the long run, who doesn't want to kind of use you, who plays by the rules, you know, and who wants, and even if it's a business partner or personal partner, it has this connotation of being able to create more stability in your life. So if also business collaboration appears for you, I think it might be quite good. Because again, Saturn becomes visible in this positive nakshatra of victory. So this person, and it might be hard, you might never feel too warm towards this person. This person might be a little bit too distant, or they can be a bit too constipated, or a bit too stiff upper lip at time, or they can be quite kind of sarcastic type, like Saturn, like, you know, serious and just doesn't smile much, and then says something quite sharp and sarcastic and a bit critical. But it can be the appearance of a critical partner as well. That's in the more negative cases. Someone comes into your life that tends to criticize you and put demands on you and put some restrictions, because whoever you meet now in your life, they're trying to bring into your life the Saturnian lessons, and that's to grow up, to be mature. And you're growing up and maturing through relationships now, and you've been for the past 2 years. It's been a tough one, but Saturn Day appearing for the last time, giving birth, is like someone can appear, business partner, another person, or important partner, like life partner of a sort, who has the character of a break for you, of someone who sobers you up, who matures you, who makes you more realistic, who grounds you down to earth. In the worst case scenario, if Saturn is making lots of hard aspects when it's becoming visible, I told you how to see. If Saturn is making any aspect and, you know, becoming visible for you, Cancer, from your personal transit calendar, if you see it making like a lot of squares or oppositions and stuff, in worst case scenario, this can be someone that challenges you a lot. This challenging relationship can start, which is karmic, which brings more burdens and responsibilities to you. Even a good relationship starting, it will carry with it the nature of business partnership, of more responsibility, of more work, of having to work harder through it. In the worst case scenario, again, it can be someone that carries kind of resentments towards you, and you have to work out through some karma, and who might be like really stepping on your neck and trying to, you're not doing this right, do it better, I don't like this, maybe you should lose weight, you know, because Saturn can be critical or kind of distance. I hope it's not the worst case scenario for you. But you see, Saturn can have so many positive manifestations as well, and that can be a great time, because Saturn is connected to business and work, to do some contracts, and they will be long lasting. Saturn's becoming visible in Capricorn, long lasting sign of victory, the constellation of Uttarashadha, the later victory. And relationships started now, they can take longer, whether personal or business, to warm up, to develop, but in the long term, they can be very victorious, long lasting, and loyal in a sort. It can be the start of a new phase of your life, through relationship, through your relationship life. It can be the start of something laborious, some process of you having to do something hard in a relationship, but Saturn will give you the self-determination, the self-discipline. If you have to eliminate someone, if you have to put some structures and limitations in your relationship, or who you let into your life, Saturn will give you more perseverance to do that as well. Also more gloomy outlook towards relationship, depends on which level of the scale you are, but I don't pretend to be very spiritual. I mean, I pretend to be, but every time I have a hard transit and the planet comes, I tend to react in the most, lowest possible manifestation. And it still works out great at the end, if you look for the lesson of it. Okay, so then we have, and by the way, if you want to learn how to use transits, you don't need to know much astrology. We have a webinar on the 21st of January with Victor. It's 5 hours. It's 30% off if you get it now, or if you're part of the Legacy membership. No, it's also 30%. And it's going to teach you which are the really important transits, because we have so many transits every day, but which will really manifest. Maybe one per month will actually give some results, and how to find those out. Very easy, but so insightful. All right, and then we have Leo. Leo, for you, Saturn is becoming visible in your 6th house. What does it mean? Well, it can be the birth of a new job opportunity, but it will be Saturnian in nature. It will require you to work longer hours, to have more responsibilities. It might have an environment that is more demanding, that is more, maybe not the friendliest, maybe more aloof and cold. But at the same time, it can really, some project that you start at work now, if it's a new one, even though it will be more demanding, it will require to be done over and over. It will require a lot of efforts, which is what Saturn asks for. It can have very long-lasting results. You might probably see them by the end of the year, those results, when Saturn fully comes out of Capricorn after that. So it's good for such things, starting some work connected to Saturn. So Saturn likes to be in the 6th house, it will give more boundaries in regards to your work, more self-discipline, more efficiency. It can make you get done every day a little bit of work, so to be more organized overall. When Saturn transits the 6th house, when it was invisible for a couple of months, maybe it was a bit hard to organize your work, to have more consistency, but it's becoming born there, becoming visible. So you have more self-discipline with your work, more structures. There can be some new structures and rules that come into your work. Maybe a boss that imposes some new regulations or tighter restrictions or rules. But again, the long-term reason of Saturn is to teach you to be more efficient, to be more organized, and to be more to figure out, to sort out your priorities when it comes to work. Am I going to answer 300 emails today and just waste my energy and go hectic? Because Saturn will increase the level of responsibility and work in your environment for sure. Even if you don't go to the office, your daily chores will be increased. New such ones will be born if you have, it's like extra such ones. But Saturn ultimately will push you to decide, should I answer those 300 emails, or should I do 2 things that are going to be the really most productive ones today, to really sort out your priorities, and to streamline your work, to organize your space and environment as well. It can give you more determination and focus on self-discipline to put order in your house, if it's, out of, to give new structures and order around your life. And also, it can be the birth of new rules in regards to your health. I have my moon in Leo, so I'm definitely feeling it. I will tell you one day when I'm certain that it happened, but I've been having for a week great advances with certain unhealthy habits. So it can be the birth of a new effort, renewed effort, especially powerful in the next 2 weeks to overcome some health challenge. That will require effort now. It is Saturn. It's not going to happen like, oh, okay, I no longer feel like, I feel like running every morning. It's so much fun, It's going to be like, no, I have to push myself. So Saturn will bring new self-discipline and ride that wave, because it's not going to happen again for 29 years for you, Leos. Saturn is never going to rise in your 6th house of taking care of your health and changing your diets and changing your routines, which are responsible for your health. It's never going to happen in another 29 years. So use those 2 weeks to really, if you have to start a workout routine, and it will be hard at first, it is Saturn, but You will stick with it if you do it now, because Saturn in its own sign in the constellation of Uttara Shatha, the later victorious, later on, maybe towards the end of the year, when Saturn fully comes out of Capricorn, you have integrated it and made it integral part of your life, whatever new health routine you have established, and you will probably do it to the end of your life. You will probably, it means that later victory. So this constellation Saturn is becoming visible in. So it will give you victory in your health that has long lasting, and it's the results of the late Uttara Shatha, where Saturn is becoming visible, is that the reward or the victory it brings are undefeatable. They stay, they're lasting. So yes, it will require some push and effort. Ride that wave, do this. Maybe you have to stop smoking or drinking or whatever. Start it, and know at the start it will be hard, but you will be, first of all, this is a nakshatra. Saturn is becoming visible victory, and it will be long lasting in Capricorn. So please do that. Okay. Also, they can be the birth or the appearance of new job, as I said, which is Saturnian. Maybe it requires you to kind of break your back a little bit longer, or new project, or employees. Maybe you can now hire an older employee, Saturn, someone older with more experience, or maybe now can appear that you can hire, or that you need some fixing or help around. So you will need extra duty and responsibility with employees, or maybe some of your employees, if you have such someone that works for you or whatever, that they become a bit more demanding. They might be the need to do some project with them, to work extra hard, or to, maybe if you're trying to find, you might start a laborious process that takes some effort and time, but can be successful at the end, connected to anything to do with pets or anything to do with employees. It's funny when I say pets and employees, the sixth house, and people like, so pets, you compare employees to pets, but this is what ancient astrology did. So more serious, the birth of more serious approach to your health, more responsibility at your work, maybe more restrictive circumstances at your work, more demanding, some challenge that you have to overcome with pets, to work through some complications that you have to streamline and make more easy, with efforts in regards to your work, in regards to your health, in regards to employees. And by the way, Leos, we're doing transits webinar, which is 30% off till the 21st of February, 5-hour webinar. Understand how to predict with transits. And you can also get your personal transits read, I think, for another extra $20, a reading, personal reading with Victor. There is an option. So find out how to use transits to predict. This is the system I use the most. They're amazing transits, or I love transits, but not all of them work. Which are going to be the really ones that trigger your chart? Okay, so then it's Virgo. Virgo, Saturn is becoming visible in your 5th house. So it's going to bring into you maybe the birth of a new romantic interest. But if it brings a new romantic interest, it will be Saturnian of nature, someone older. So over the next 2 weeks, so in the past week, pay attention. Did some new romantic interests appear? But this person will be Saturnian in nature. It means that they're probably older, they have more authority, or they're more responsible. There is an age gap. Sometimes it can play the other way around, but there's something connected with an age gap. They can be the birth of a new romantic experience with someone who can be maybe a bit more aloof or more distant, those qualities of Saturn, too mature for their age, or actually more mature than you. It can be the birth of a romantic interest towards someone karmic, someone that can stay for the long term as well, because Saturn is becoming visible in Capricorn. Might not be the most fun person, but it will be loyal, responsible person, serious person who is there possibly to straighten you out, to bring some discipline, some self-restraint in your life as well, or more maturity in some way. They can be the birth of new, and in a negative case scenario, it can just be a more burdensome love affair that starts. That just demands more efforts from you, or that it starts slower, which is Saturn's energy, and takes longer to develop, but again, it can be quite lasting again. It might start cooler and slower, and in the worst case scenario, it can be with someone that is kind of a bit cold, distant, heartless, type of thing. I hope not, depending if Saturn is making good aspects from there. You can check on your personal transit calendar if in the next week or the couple of weeks or in the past one, if Saturn is making any aspects in your personal transit calendar, and whether they're easy or hard. So check this out. If it's good aspects, the more positive manifestations of Saturn will come through this fifth house. It can also be the birth of a new creative project that you're trying to put into a job, to make into a, or maybe the birth of some creative project that is more Saturnian, that requires maybe some planning, organizing, that requires more practical approach, that is connected to more maybe repeated efforts and repeated more consistent focus of energy. Also, it can be the opportunity and the more rules and regulations around your love life. You can start becoming more serious, like, I'm not going to let this person, I'm going to let this person. This is what I need from someone. This is not what I'm going to tolerate. So the birth of new, your own rules and regulations in regards to your love life. But also in worst case scenario, it can be the birth of some obstacle you have to overcome in a romantic relationship. I hope this is not exactly that. Or maybe more duties and responsibility that appear in your life can detract somehow of your romantic experience. Or another thing is that a romantic experience can appear, fifth house romantic experience, in a work environment, Saturn. That's hopefully the one for you. Also, you can become more serious about controlling how you have fun. So you can consciously, or you can be forced into that, whether you consciously decided that I'm going to regulate my drinking, for example, because fifth house activities is to have fun. So a lot of people think of hobbies. A lot of people's hobbies is just drinking, or a lot of people hobbies, but with Saturn becoming visible there, they'll be like, either it's imposed on them from outer reasons. They can't have fun because they have too much work, because responsibilities appear, or because they're having problem with whatever they're having fun on. They kind of, from inside, they want to structure to start having more responsible types of fun, or more organized type of fun, or type of fun that requires more willpower, for example, not willpower, more self-discipline of some sort. Maybe take up something Saturnian as a hobby. It can be the birth of some Saturnian hobby, like rock climbing or skiing. Saturn is like that. Or having some fun that is Saturnian of nature that appears. Starting a business, that's fun. It can also indicate trying to turn a gift of yours, something you're passionate about, into work, Saturn, into business. Or it can indicate you trying to structure and organize your creative processes, if you're anything that you're creating, to put more structure, more routines there. Then in the worst case scenario, you can just create certain limitations in your love life for a little bit, or in your relationship with children. It can also be the birth of a new phase of your life connected to children. Also, for some of you, actually, it can be the birth of a conception or news about children, because Saturn, after all, it's in its own sign. So yeah, let's see. And by the way, if you want to understand how to use transits exactly, we're doing a webinar with Victor on the 21st of February, which is 30% off. It's 5 hours, and you can even get your chart read for extra $20, your transits. And Victor will do that. I think it's 20, I'm not sure. But yeah, check it out. And this is how you're going to understand how to exactly use transits. If you if you don't want to depend on an astrologer, because I personally, as an astrologer, if someone comes to me, I use mostly transits to make predictions. It seems to be pretty correct. And it's the easiest method, but also the most correct, according to me. All right, so if you're Libra, Saturn is becoming visible in your fourth house. It can be the birth of a new family member, for example, that brings more responsibilities and duties, or the news of a new family member that brings more responsibilities and duties. It can be the birth or the ability to start building a house now, laying foundations, because Saturn is becoming born in its own sign. So yes, it will bring more responsibilities at home and family and stuff. Maybe the need for some extra effort, but it can be also a new beginning, like moving to a new place, uh, changing something, restructuring something at your home, starting some structural, changes or fixing stuff around your home and property or garden. It can be the birth of more efforts that have to be put in finding a home or building a home, or family responsibilities and parenthood responsibilities. But because Saturn is being born in its own sign, and in the constellation of the later victory, it means that whatever you start now will have long-lasting victorious results. And for example, if you decide to start process of relocation this month, Saturn becoming visible, and it will manifest for you such opportunities. And it might require a lot of efforts, this process. It might feel like, oh, I have to do that. Oh my God, all the packing, unpacking, whatever. But whatever you move or sell property and relocate, it will have you stuck there. You'll stay for a long time. And initially might feel a bit lonely because Saturn triggers it. Saturn is a planet of loneliness. But especially good if you're having to do some renovations of the home or extra efforts. Also, it can indicate you finding a Saturnian type of property or upgrading something in your home in Saturnian ways, with building, with stone, with wood. These are all type of things, building fences of any sort. So good for any agricultural projects, building projects. If you're in a career that is property, you can start some new projects that are quite demanding, or that require a lot of efforts, but they can have very lasting positive or stable results again. And in worst case scenario, they can be the birth of some problems, especially if Saturn is making hard aspects from that fourth house to your personal planets, which you can see in the transit calendar. If Saturn in the next couple of weeks is making hard transits from there, or in the last 1 week if it's been making, then it can indicate that they can be the birth of new responsibilities at home, like having to care for a parent or something, the birth of extra pressure in your personal life, some obstacle you have to overcome, or the need to really grow up there and tie up loose ends. But if you really want to understand transits, we're doing a webinar with Victor on the 21st of February, which teaches you, is it 21st? I don't know, something like that. Might be a bit later. Which teaches you transits, how to use them. And actually there is a version that includes a reading of your personal transits, a private reading that is, I think, very cheap, like $20 extra, 30 on top of the webinar, which will be 5 hours, and it's 30% off. And which are the best transits, which are the most important transits, how to use them, how to predict with them. Okay. Then we're having Scorpio. Scorpio, for you, Saturn is becoming visible in your third house, which means there'll be like new responsibilities that come to you, for example, in a small group environment. Like there might be the birth of a new business project that requires, getting together, brainstorming with others, working in a small group environment with colleagues. There might be some extra responsibilities and duties that are born in regards to a commercial project as well. Third house is business, commercial project, or new responsibilities and duties that are being born and created in regards to some marketing media, or trip. Third house rules trips. So you have to put more order, to organize, streamline some trip, or there might be new responsibilities appearing for you in some business environment, like business meetings or extra, and it might be like, in worst case scenario, some problems that appear, because Saturn on the negative scale can manifest problems as well, like with vehicles, with transportation, with siblings, with relatives, that you have to cope for the foreseeable future and put more efforts in. uh, it can also indicate that your environment in everyday life, like at work or whatever, can become a little bit more strained, maybe a little bit more distant or full of responsibilities for the next 2-3 weeks, that you have to deal with something there and solve it. And also it can indicate the birth of some new project that you have to do with relatives, with neighbors, also the ability to structure and organize. So because Saturn has a good side as well, it brings more order, discipline into your thinking, into your structure, into your communications. So you might be required, and any administrative duties is the third house. So there might be increase of responsibilities and new administrative responsibilities, like filing documents, writing letters, emails. These can increase definitely. And if you're in any career that is administrative or requires media, communication, information, teaching skills, your responsibilities can increase, on new such responsibilities and duties can come to you as well. Also, the possibility of a trip, the trip that appears that is possibly work related, which is Saturn, short distance, but might require a lot of effort and thing. Or as I said, working in a small group environment on some project. Also, they can be that you decide to put limits and build limits to who you communicate with, and you can have more self-discipline in how much time you spend online, and who you socialize with, and who you communicate with, what information you put out there. You can limit those things. When Saturn's becoming visible, you can decide, like, okay, I'm no longer giving information about that, or I'm just gonna distance myself. So more no power Saturn gives you when it's visible, when it's being born. More no power in regards to third house activities, in regards to siblings, relatives, teammates, workmates, even some friendships, social media and such. It's great for business though. It really structures the mind, helps you think more organized, helps you systemize administrative duties, helps you if you're studying some skill or course. It can be the birth of some new skill that you want to learn. And this new skill, it will take longer to acquire, but it will bring very victorious results, because Saturn is becoming visible in the constellation of the later victory. So with very lasting results, with very lasting victories. So it might be a great time to start some course, to start some new skills that you're acquiring, and you might be forced into it. Saturn has a tendency to push us into things without us wanting. And it's like, for example, at work, they can tell you have to learn to drive a car, or if you want to be promoted, or you have to learn to use this software, or you have to learn some new school, or take this test or whatever. And you're like, okay, but that will be good. Go for it, because it will bring more stability overall after that. And these skills that you acquire now, this month, starting this month, might take much longer than a month, whether it's playing an instrument or whatever. They will stay with you for a long time. They will have a long-lasting, victorious effect. But again, as I said, they can be the birth of some obstacle and problems in communication, in transportation, in working in small group environments. As the more negative manifestation that you'll have to deal, and the birth of some all of those delays with documents or certain things. But they can be the birth of like new marketing projects, new business administrative projects, new media responsibilities, increased media responsibilities of any sorts, or more responsibility with communications. All right, so then, and by the way, if you'd like to learn transits, Victor is making a webinar 30% off on how to use transits, which are the important transits. Not all of them are important. For me this year, only Mars transits are important. So you'll be able to really know when something is going to happen, because a day we have, like, I can have up to 20 transits per day. And are they all of them going to affect me? Mostly. Just some transits are really important depending on your personal horoscope, what is being activated. And Victor will teach you that. Fantastic webinar, 30% off till the 20 something of February. Which includes a personal reading option as well of your transits. Then we came to Sagittarius. Sagittarius, Sun, Moon, and Rising. Saturn is becoming visible in your second house. They can be the birth of new responsibilities connected to family that require more of your efforts. First of all, they can be the birth, but that in the long term can create more lasting, stable, secure financial situation for the family. They can be the birth of new financial responsibilities. For example, you get an idea that you want to invest in something, or that you have to save for something, and you start that activity now, and that's the best way it can play out, Saturn in the second house, because then you're self-regulating yourself on your own. You're putting self-discipline on your own, maybe to save for something, maybe to invest in something. Because if you don't do that, Saturn becoming visible in the second house can impose limitations and regulations on your finances from outside. So the birth of certain financial restrictions, or the birth of certain financial austerities, or the need to restructure financially something. But it's fantastic time, those couple of weeks, 2-3 weeks, to start some plan, because Saturn likes plans, well-organized things, of restructuring your finances, maybe moving one investment to another place, or money from one bank to another, or just redoing the plan of what you do with your savings, redoing the plan of how you spend your money, or just not redoing it, making a new one such. So the ultimate goal of Saturn is to streamline your finances, to remove the complications, to remove the unnecessary expenses. And it can usually do it in a forceful and pleasant way, because it wants to wake you up to your financial responsibilities and to the fact that you don't need so many things. So it can be the birth of a new awareness that you don't really need so many things. Saturn likes simplicity. Saturn likes minimalism. And when it's in the house of resources and finances and possessions, it might be a great time for you to start a new chapter by throwing out clothes, or by creating a new wardrobe for yourself, or possessions that are just the ones that are most essential, the ones that have the most value for you. Saturn is about learning priorities, practical priorities. What's important? Should I keep all those 100 dresses that I have for $5, or should I just go and buy 5 dresses for $100, but I'm gonna really take care of them and wear them, or whatever. And on the high level, of course, on the more not high level, but it can be the same you approach with money. Should I be spending on 5 subscriptions to different TV channels, or different learning channels, or whatever? Well, actually, I discovered a new subscription that puts all of those together in one package. So I'm going to be more wiser about, and I'm going to take a new approach to how I spend my money. I'm just giving you random examples how it can play out. Or you might be forced to basically from outside to, okay, I have to create a new plan, for financial plan. Also, it can give you more ability to control your spending, to be more meticulous about your spending, or more deliberate is the word, more deliberate about your resources, your money as well. And if you're making some investments now, it might be a good time to invest in something Saturnian, like property, like something that will give long-term results over the years. It's not going to immediately pay back to you, but maybe in a few years. Maybe it can be something that takes longer to return the money for you. This is good. A new beginning with your finances, and investing something like that, Saturnian in nature, it's great. Or investing in anything Saturn ruled, basically, like wood and leather, and but usually the most common thing is some type of property. And or some bonds or whatever that are very traditional, that have very little gain of them over time, but they don't lose their value and they're very secure type of thing. This is the good thing for you to do now. To create new structure for you financially. Also, new opportunities for money can appear, but they are of Saturnian nature. As I said, they will require efforts, more energy from you. They will require you to rely on experience, rather not do something crazy with your money. Something new appears very likely as an opportunity for money, but it requires you to do the tried and tested route. If some crazy new financial idea appears, which is very kind of let's say innovative and unusual, this is not the right thing for you now. Sagittarius, more traditional, more, you know, more reliable. That's what can give great results and very good lasting results. Saturn is becoming visible in the later degrees of Capricorn, which under the constellation of the Uttarashadha, the later victory. So the unsurmountable victory, basically. But so whatever you do with financial matters now and family matters, they can have very long-lasting, positive result, stabilizing results in the long term. Maybe you'll see the results a year from now or something. On another level, Saturn can give the birth of more self-discipline in your eating, what you put in your mouth. The second house also rules that. It can give the birth of a new dental hygiene for you, or something of the sort, you know, because it also rules the teeth. More routine dentally, or when it comes to your food, the power to say no and the power to regulate. And sometimes, unfortunately, if you're not doing it on your own willingly, Saturn can restrict your intake of food unwillingly for other reasons, you know, when it's becoming visible. Okay, allergies, so hopefully not. So there we go. What else is the second house? I think that's about it. Sagittarius. These are the important thing, the birth of, yeah. And by the way, if you'd like to learn more about transits, Victor is making a 5-hour webinar, and he's our favorite teacher on Astrolada here, on transits, how to use them, which are the really important ones. This year, for me, all Mars transits are important. All the others, I barely feel them. Last year was the Jupiter transits, how to figure this out according to your horoscope, so you can really you know, you can really hone in and read and predict for people with transits. And it's 30% off till February something. I don't even know our program. All right, so yes, Sagittarius, some financial new structures can be appearing, or the need for limitations of some sort. Okay, so then we go to Capricorns. Capricorns, for you, this is good. Good news. Saturn is becoming visible in your sign, especially the later born Capricorns, basically born in around, I would say the last, from the 13th to the 20th of January. They will feel it very strongly, but if Saturn especially is making aspect, but you know, it's passing over the sun basically, but Saturn is becoming visible in your sign. So you're going to start coming into your power. You're going to start having more energy. You're going to start feeling more like yourself. Maybe for the last 2 months, you're more at the backstage, background. Maybe there were a bit more challenges and more difficulties manifesting, but now new births, new beginnings can be born for you with Saturn, your planet, being born. And these new beginnings will be long lasting because Saturn is becoming visible in the constellation of success, later success, which means the success comes a bit later, maybe in a year or a few years or after a few months. First, it requires efforts. So it might feel to some of you is like the birth of new burdens, new responsibilities. Oh, more to carry on my shoulder. But this thing leads you to victory at the end. So undertake, if there are new responsibilities, undertake them. And try to, whatever new opportunities will come for you, because Saturn, the planet that rules you, is appearing. They, you might take longer to warm up to, and they might take longer to fulfill their, to give their results back, but they'll be long lasting. And because they just will need more longer time to be built up, because it's Capricorn after all, you know, the new beginnings. But the structures will be solid, long lasting, maybe for life, maybe for your legacy after that. So now is great time to start new beginnings for you Capricorns, you know, with Saturn becoming visible, but also some new responsibility, new project, new direction, new career direction can be born for you, and material as well, because Saturn also rules your second house of resources. So some material possibility or responsibility, the need to, you know, to the ability also to structure your resources better, but also more self-control of your physical body. You'll be able to start working out routines and stick with them now, because Saturn is becoming visible in your first house if it's your ascendant in Capricorn, or your sun as well, or your moon. With the moon, if it's Saturn, if it's there, they can be the birth of new responsibilities around home and family, new structures, uh, new place of living, for example, and such. With the sun, it's more connected to career, and male figures appearing of such nature in your life, of Saturnian, more responsible, older, more critical, more demanding of some sort. But overall, Capricorn, it is, I think you're gonna feel way better. I think you'll feel more in control of your life, able to manifest, more seen, more visible. Finally, your actions will start giving results slowly. It is Saturn after all, and new initiatives. All right, so then, and by the way, if you want to attend our webinar with Victor on transits, it's on the 20th of January. No, 20th of February, 21st is 30% off, 5 hours. What are transits, how to use them, which are the important transits. I personally use transits only when I work with clients, and I have great success rate. So it's the easiest method for prediction, but also the most powerful. And transits, only some transits work through the year for a person. For example, for me this year is Mars transit, next year will be Venus transits that work. And so we'll teach you exactly which ones those transits are and how to find out for you. All right, so Aquarius, this is also good news for you. Saturn is your traditional ruler. I don't know about you, but me as an Aquarius, I've been feeling a bit tired, and you know, and it's when our ruler is invisible, things are less predictable. Saturn is a very predictable planet. So when it's visible, things are kind of more according to our plan. So things will start becoming, you're going to start having more control over what's happening around you, and the direction events are going. While it was invisible for a couple of months, maybe you felt a bit more out of control, or that your life was under the influence of some sources beyond yourself. Maybe some surprises came as well, that were kind of beyond you as well. And but now Saturn is becoming visible, so things are coming more into order. And you as an Aquarius and Capricorns, we do like order, to be honest. And we even find in chaos order as Aquarius. All right, that doesn't matter. But Saturn is becoming visible also in your 12th house, in our 12th house, which indicates they can be the birth of some new spiritual training that starts with some of your 12 houses, the house of spirituality, changing your level of consciousness. So you can suddenly start finding more self-discipline and self-control to apply maybe some new meditative practices. And Saturn means actually ancient, to apply some ancient spiritual traditional methods towards achieving liberation or having more control of your soul, because the 12th house is one of the soul houses. To the mental houses, we think once the 12th house is triggered that we, you know, that we might be going cuckoo sometimes. But when Saturn is becoming visible in the 12th house, you can start taking control of your mental state, of your soul state, by maybe structured visualization, by maybe structured meditation. And you'll never again in your life, or for the next 29 years, have such an opportunity as now, because Saturn will not become visible again for the next 28 years in your 12th house. So now this month is an opportunity to start some spiritual practice. And spiritual practice can be, you know, gratitude list, can be meditation, it can be just mindfulness, it can be just pick up one and do it, because Saturn is giving you this ability to really invest yourself in it now, because it's so strong when it's being born in the 12th house, to really have the self-discipline to go with it. And it might feel more laborious, and it might feel like more draining at the beginning, but if you implant some spiritual practice in your life now, it will stay with you till the end. Maybe you start praying. Maybe I certainly now I'm starting to pray with my kids, and I want this to be a spiritual practice. I'm starting to, for the first time yesterday, I was um, I managed to have control over certain fears that came to me. You can take control over phobias, over paranoias now. And again, it requires either breathing or spiritual practice or some psychological self-work. But Saturn gives you the control to master those demons or those psychological states that you always thought were out of your control. And yesterday I had some crazy feelings and thoughts. And I usually would let them run me down into a rabbit hole. And I'll start thinking of, it's my revenge, or like if I'm like, if it's jealousy, and I don't normally feel that, but I'm having Pluto transit, Saturn transit, so I'm like having those weird thoughts, and it could have spun me out of to such an extent to get me wake up at 2 o'clock other times and start drinking or whatever. But yesterday it was just so easy to kind of shut the mind, and these are spiritual practices. Shut negative thought out and implant, and instead substitute it with a positive one, or with breathing, or with some simple repetition of a mantra or a word. These are spiritual, now we call them psychological practices. So fantastic time. I mean, like, I'm seeing the results. Saturn is becoming visible, and I even woke up and told my husband it's the first time I could shut off those dark thoughts that I have, but that would come occasionally. I mean, like, I'm not some cuckoo just having dark thoughts every time at night, like, but sometimes it would come in waves, and I'll just all night I'll stay awake and like I can't stop them. No, yesterday I'm like shut, and that's what the positive side of Saturn becomes, it being visible in your 12th house, is self-control over fears or over the psychological states, this self-discipline you can apply towards a spiritual practice that you can keep for life. On another level, it can indicate the opportunity for some kind of a research, the start of a deep research and studies that Saturn initiate, especially science or mystical, whatever. You can have and it will require extra effort. You might only see the results in a year, by the end of the year when Saturn comes out, and it will require consistent effort. Or it can be that this is the beginning of some opportunity to faraway trip or to faraway place, relocation to a different place as well, which will require efforts again, more consistent planning. But overall, I think on the spiritual level, this is the reorganizing of your mental state, reorganizing of your spiritual state, putting structures there, new structures, new coping mechanisms. This is Saturn, with your inner demons, with your psychological issues, with your weaknesses and vices, which is the 12th house, with your addictions or whatever it is. Also, Saturn in the 12th house, unfortunately, can bring the rise of new fears, especially if Saturn is making a lot of hard aspects, like in my chart. But because we are Saturn, we're ruled by Saturn, we have more control over that. Those fears can arise now. Those fears, worries, they'll arise, so we can take more control over them. So that's the ultimate goal, and be successful in a very long term for life. So now it's time for annihilation, or the Saturn for the last time gives birth to the no power, to the power to say no in our lives, to self-sabotaging behaviors, to addictions, to old things that are dying out, the 12th house, and to really like, no, Saturn for the last time is becoming visible in the 12th house. I really feel like I'm done with you. I really think I'm done with this thing. Is the last time. A lot of people will feel like that. If you're Aquarius, like, wow, I'm done with that. It's like you might have to use a bit of willpower or a bit of self uh, self-control at the start, but Saturn gives it to you. Okay. Some of you might have new responsibilities connected to 12th house, to charities, new responsibilities, extra responsibilities connected to spiritual work of some sort, extra responsibilities connected to helping others in some self. It might feel like it's enforced on you, and you're like, do I have to do it? Do it. Saturn is being born in your 12th house. It's good karma you are gonna make. Extra responsibilities, for example, around hospitals, with prisoners and people that are in such kind of environments. And in the worst case scenario, they can be the birth of some new kind of restriction that comes to you, which is more psychological in nature, but again, with the intention to work through it. Okay, so then there is Pisces, Pisces Sun, Moon, or Rising, and Saturn is becoming visible in the 11th house. Quite good. You know, Saturn indicates that you can put more structures and organizations towards achieving your long-term goals and dreams and wishes. And you can actually start manifesting them in the material now. If till now they were just like ideas in your mind, some new goals that appeared, some new inspirations for the future, dreams, some socio-economic ambitions that you have, because the 11th house is also gains. It's popular, it's gains, it's achieving popular recognition from the audience, social positions as well. So now you can put it into, how do I say, into manifestation, into action, to start seeing tangible results from that. So those ideas that you have, you can start slowly climbing like the goat and Saturn and Capricorn towards them with tangible results. So, but there can be also the birth of new friendships that happen now, or acquaintances. Doesn't have to be close friendship. Social connection that is very Saturnian in nature with someone older. It might turn out that it's a benefactor, especially if Saturn is making good aspects from there, from your 11th house. And I told you, you can check your aspects from the free transit calendar that I have created for you. I showed you at the start of the video. So if it's squares or oppositions, it can be the birth of some friendships that feel more, or people that enter your life that feel very critical, that might demean you, which is the harder aspects of Saturn, that can challenge you. They can challenge you again to more responsibility and sobriety and harder work towards achieving your goals, but in a way that hurts a little bit. It's in a forceful way. If Saturn is making good aspects from this 11th house, like trine, like even conjunctions, sextile, when it's becoming visible, some people appear in your life. They can be peers, they can be mentors, benefactors, acquaintances, just social network of some sort that creates more increased sense of responsibility in you, that creates more business opportunities and marketplace connections. Saturn can create that, you know, especially for business. That can be long lasting, and someone that is older, more mature, more responsible, with more experience, with good reputation in the society, in the circle you're trying to achieve success in. And they can be like a door for you, like a doorway, like a old mentor, or that tries and helps you. And also they can be the birth of opportunities for gains as well. But these will be Saturnian in nature, maybe from property, or maybe from something that gives it results later on. It takes longer time and gains, and you have to proceed with, you know, towards your goals with more patience, with more traditional approaches, and search to collaborate, to search access now to Saturnian type people. They might be Capricorn, or more importantly, they might be just older, they might be more established in a certain society, they might be more traditional, doing things by the book, by the law, but these are the people that can help you now. And these are the people that can help lead you to more gains, or to achieving those goals and dreams of the 11th house that you're looking for. On the negative side, it can indicate an older friend appearing into your life. Or it can indicate the appearance of a group, or you belonging to a group or society that is business oriented, Saturn, or that is connected because of responsibility, career topic of some sort, Saturn, or some responsibility or duty to the world, or such kind of more responsible organization of some sort. You can become a member or develop such interest, political or social interest towards some organization of and cause of responsibility, of preservation, Saturn, of limitation of some sort, or to constrain, to restrict something, or more conservative in nature, or maybe join weight loss society. Saturn is to restrict, to say no to, so you can join if now you want to achieve some goal, join a group organization. Saturn, the 11th house is group. Saturn will give you the self-discipline through the environment of a group, through the environment of a society of some sort, especially societies that are trying to stop something, which is Saturn, or to say no, or to develop some self-discipline. Or Saturn is business, connected to business and such kind of more serious matters. And in the worst case scenario, they can be the birth of extra burdens and duties in friendships, or some problem with a friend you have to be dealing with, or some problem in your social environment, or with gains. But that's in the worst case scenario. We're not talking about it. Just keep it in mind. All right. So, and by the way, we're making transit webinar with Victor, which is 30% off. And there is an option even to get personal chart for only transit reading with Victor for 20 minutes for only $20 or $30 on top of the webinar. And the webinar is very affordable. Was it $50, something like that, and it's 5 hours. And which transits are the most important, how to use transit. This is the best predictive technique, transits, that I use. I love it. It's real time. You see it happening in the sky. It's not some kind of a out there system that who invented it, what was the logic, what the no, it's just so scientific. I love it. But only some transits are active through the year for every person. Like for me, it's Mars this year. Next year is Venus. Yeah. So how do you determine that? And how do you make right predictions with transit? So check out that course. Thank you so much. I love you. Enjoy the rise of Saturn. Enjoy the more structure. Enjoy the more, well, who enjoys more structure and rules and regulations? But enjoy getting it more together, like Saturn usually can bring us. So and more stable material structures that Saturn can bring us. Thank you so much. I love you. And check out my legacy membership. Only 20 days left.